video from theplayersaid.com, tackling another list of games.
Yeah.
Also, because it's requested, people ask for these kind of things all the time. So
Right.
here it is. So
Here's another list. People love lists.
today, yeah, which take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about top 5 GMT games.
Yes, and I'm going to say this is very hard.
Yes.
It's very hard for me to boil this down because there's so many games that I love that are from GMT
And
that
to me, they're putting games out that are like consistently.
Yeah,
There's like
so
a new
good.
amazing game every month.
Well,
At least one of the 3 or 4 they put out.
and most of mine are, well, they're actually not newer. I'm surprised.
But they are, I would say, newer in the sense that it's like new GMT.
Right, the
In
last
the last decade or
8
so.
to 10 years, yeah.
Because before that, there's so many games they've made, which
Yeah.
they're out of print or we couldn't get a hold of them. We're fairly new to the wargame hobby, relatively speaking. We've been doing this now for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Of
6
like
years.
playing games.
6 to 7 years.
We've been doing this for
Yeah, the
probably
blog's only been 3 years.
2.5
years, but
so we've got a decent number of them. But,
I've got 30 GMT games.
there's games out there which I'll never
Yeah.
play. I would like to, but
Yeah.
you can't get a hold of them or just don't have access to it. So
Yeah. But it's very, very hard for me to boil this down. I'm just going to be
Yeah.
honest. And I don't want anyone to be offended because there's some games on there that I'm like, how do I not put Churchill on this list?
but like
How do I not do that? I love Churchill. We played that game
a bunch.
8 or 10 times, 7 or 8 times. I love it. Every time we play it, I love it.
But then,
Every time.
but then you sit down and write a list and like,
Yeah, how do I leave that one off? Yeah, it's just hard.
so
It's very hard.
tons of games out
Very
there.
hard.
We have this huge back catalog of videos that you can watch reviews on. Check
Yeah.
them all out if you want to take a look at things which aren't on the list. But here's kind of 5 games, my kind of top 5 games by GMT, so to speak. And I'm going to start with number 5, which
Oh, see, this is a hard one for me
It's
not to have on my
Twilight
list. How do I not have this on my list,
and
Alexander?
how is this not number 1?
I don't know. I love it.
So this is number 5 for me, just because I like the other ones more.
Yeah, it's
love
hard.
this game though. Like this being number 5 isn't like, oh, this is
It's not an
this is
insult.
terrible. Yeah, this is one of my favorite games. My collection of games is more than I like to admit. This is one of my favorite ones.
Well, and this was one of the first
Yeah, this is really.
GMT games that we played together.
This was
First one you owned.
we played this, and then from here it was like we played Labyrinth.
Yeah.
We then played
Churchill.
Wilderness War.
Yeah, Wilderness War.
Fire
Yeah.
in the Lake.
Combat
that was a
Commander. Yeah.
but like, I think this was
such a great
this was
game.
my first GMT game. I think.
Yeah.
I think I played.
Is it a war game?
No, it is not.
So we agree that this is not a war game.
Nope.
It has war theme, but it is a card-driven
It's Cold War.
struggle for Cold War. Yeah, there's no war going on.
This is a political game.
Great game. Great game.
There are revolutions and coups, but it's not a war game. This is an influence game. It's like area control, but it's a card-driven game. And this rewards playing over and over again with the same person.
No
The
doubt.
more you play this game with the same opponent, the better this game becomes.
Well, you learn their tendencies, you learn their bluffing, you learn their tells.
And it's important to try and play with someone who has played this kind of the same amount as you.
Yeah.
If I've played this 10 times and I'm going to play a newbie, it's not going to go well.
And the reason for that is some of those cards you have to be aware of.
Yes.
You have to be aware that that card comes out in the mid-war. You know, you've got to be aware because that card can end it for you.
Because I'm like, oh, the Russian player's pumping a whole bunch into Japan.
Yeah.
And that's idiotic if you've never played the game.
Right.
Don't do it. Because, the Japanese sign a pact with the Americans, and it immediately goes blue again. So there are nuances to the game where if you can have a pretty significant advantage over someone that's not played or has only played once or twice. So, having a buddy and playing with this together over and over again, that's one of the most rewarding games there is to me. That's Twilight Struggle. It's my number 5
Number
GMT
5.
game.
And that is hard for me to compute because I love Twilight Struggle so much. It's not on my list.
Right.
And it's not number 1 for I love it. I love that game. Can we play that game?
Absolutely.
Okay, immediately. My number 5 is actually a newer game. Fields of Despair. This came out in January of 2017. Yeah, 2 years ago.
Does it say 17?
I don't even know. That's a great question. 16. It came out at the end of the year 16. Like in December, I want to say. I don't remember.
I thought it was...
It's like 2 years old. So this is one of the newest games on my list. This game is fantastic. It's a block war game focused on the Western Front in the fighting of World War I, with the Eastern Front abstracted with a draw bag and some other conditions.
One of the best abstractions I've seen.
It's fantastic.
Very cool mechanics.
I love this game because, one, it's a block war game, and it works really well because the blocks, you can make change with blocks, you can use decoys, and you don't know what's going on until you do some recon, right? Until you get those biplanes out there. And even then, you can fight each other with the biplanes, so that you don't get to know what's in my stack.
Planes, beautiful.
Such fantastic. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just absolutely glorious. I love the submarine warfare drawback.
Mm-hmm.
I love the abstraction on the Eastern Front. There's so many elements that are tied up in this game that make it so infinitely playable and enjoyable. We've enjoyed this, and it was my game of the year in 2017. War game of the year.
This is a game that is so beautiful as well.
Oh, it's...
For a World War I game,
Yeah.
it is very well produced. The map is great looking. Look at this old time map. Beautiful pieces. And it plays like it looks. It's such a cool system, such a cool game. And this is kind of one of the games that inspired me to like really pick up the videos and like doing reviews and stuff. This is one of the first ones we ever did a really in-depth
You're
shoot
right.
of,
You're right.
because it was such a fascinating game.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show people like this game's dope.
Yeah.
So this holds a place in my heart. It's such a fun game.
And it's a bucket of dice game. Literally, I think you can roll upwards of 20 or 25 dice, right?
It was a lot of dice.
But you also have a chart that you can just assume statistically and not roll the dice, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, if you want it to be a bit more like odds-based, balanced, you can just pick
Just a great game. Technologies, mustard gas, better aircraft, better mortar fire. I don't know. Just a great game. Really a great game. Not the slogging trench warfare game. That there is a scenario in the later war that does deal more with that. But the first part of the war is very maneuver oriented, very trying to gain position.
You've got to do that Schlieffen plan. You've got to do it well.
Yeah, but it's a great game. This is a fantastic, great produced game. Plays awesome. My number 5. My number 5.
So my number 4 is the somewhat aforementioned Churchill.
I love Churchill.
This is not a war game either. This is a war-themed game.
Yeah.
So this one, it's big three struggle for peace. This is a 3-player game. And you want to play it with 3 people.
We have only ever played it with 2.
Yes.
We've done the bot, the kind of
And the bot's are decent.
agreed upon bot.
And I always lose to the bot. The bot's much better at this game than I am, which is terrifying, I'll be honest. So you play as Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin, and this is basically late war, and it is, you are trying to win the wars, but you're trying to carve up the rest of the world for yourself.
For your country.
Yeah, you want to come out on top. This is shaping the post-war world, is really what this is.
It's about winning the war, but it's more about shaping the world after the war.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
And this is a unique game in that it's card-driven, but you can't really see it here. You're arguing around this kind of table, and you're discussing these political issues, and you're using these cards to kind of influence those to get them to your side of the table, so that you get to resolve them. You're doing that to win the military war, but also to put influence and political tokens out on different countries, which you're going to get points for. Trying to research atomic technology, or if you're Russians, trying to get a spy ring going to steal that technology. A lot of nuance in this game. Play with 3 people to get the most out of it.
Yeah,
the bots are pretty decent.
Yeah.
I wouldn't play it on my own, but playing for 2 with 1 bot, you can get a decent game out of it. And this has some pretty unique victory conditions in as well.
Awesome. Yeah.
If you run away with it,
you lose.
You lose because the other 2 teams are assumed to have just like joined forces to kind of cut you out of everything, kind of creating too much of a monster there. And so there's a lot of different bits and pieces. So you're trying to play well, but like not too well because you don't want to end up losing by like just dominating everything. And that's a lot of the political nuance in this game is really, really fun.
One of the things I love about it so much, the conference table is the central mechanic in the game, but I love trying to use my cards and what I'm strong at. The Russians are strong at offensive support and the clandestine markers, so you got to try to do that, and then the Americans are good at a certain thing, but I love trying to take away what you're trying to do. And when you do that successfully, man, it's really rewarding. And to see an American production being put on the Eastern Front to crush
it's sick as the American.
It's so amazing when that happens. I don't know, this game is just so fun. We have played, I think we've played twice the full 10 conference game. The other times we've done like 3, I think there's like a 3 conference, a 6 conference.
I think there's like a 7-1,
7
tournament one, is like 5.
We've done that one, those 2 more. I think we've played this, I want to say 6 or 7 times.
Oh yeah.
And most of the time I'm the Russians, and I love it. I've also played the Americans and the British. It's just, they're all different. Such a great game.
Yeah, this is a blast. This is one of my favorite games, as you can tell. Number 4 on my list, Churchill, Big 3 Struggle for Peace.
And I don't know how that one's not on my list, but
I don't know either.
It's just so hard. All right, my number 4 is a game that we actually picked up last year, and we have played this 3 or 4 times in the last 3 or 4 months.
But this one's been out for a long time.
It's been a long time. This one came out in, this is the 3rd or 4th printing. So this one came out like 10 years ago. And this game still holds up.
Oh yeah.
This game is a fantastic hex encounter war game. Lots of hidden information.
Like a lot of hidden
Like,
information.
you don't know what units are coming towards you. You don't necessarily know what resources are on planets or behind asteroids. It's all about trying to figure out and build your economy to then go out and destroy your opponent. There's a lot of bookkeeping in this game.
Yes.
I don't mind it, but there's been several times we've played that I'm like, this is so clunky. I wish there was a good app for it.
And there is.
Which I need to use.
There's an app. There's people who have made like a good spreadsheet with
That
a lot of formula on there to get that going as well. So there's aids out there because you play it and you're like, okay, that's quite a lot.
Yeah.
But it's so deep.
Good. It's so good. And there's expansions. We have the Close Encounters expansion.
Which
We
is
have
great.
We have the newest one, Replicators. You can play this solo. I've done 4 or 5 solo games. I need to work on the other solo variant.
Yeah, there's
2 or 3 of
Close
them.
Encounters as well, which we've not done either.
Just a great game. This game is fun. It's engaging. It's strategic. There's a lot of bluffing involved. How many times were you moving a stack around? I love the way you play it. I've started to understand this, but you're moving a stack around and you're like doing circles, and I'm like, what the hell is he doing? And I waste my time and go in there and kill it. Oh, it's a decoy.
I'm just like moving decoys and mines around. Like,
The mines are so fun too. Mine sweepers. That comes in the Close Encounters expansion.
That's in the base game.
Is that in the base game?
Yeah, but it's in the advanced.
Right, the advanced. I don't know. There's just so much to this game. I just love it.
And it's a good sci-fi game. I love sci-fi as well.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with it.
So my number 4 game, Space Empires. I love it. I love it.
My number 3 game is the, spoiler alert, only coin game on my list, and it is Fire in the Lake. And this is by Mark Herman and Volgorunki.
It's on my list too.
It's my favorite coin game.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's probably the second most complex coin game.
Mm-hmm.
Most complex is Pendragon.
Yes.
This is up there though. This is one of the first ones we played. Was this the first one we played?
We played this, I think I bought it in 2015.
This was, I think, it was the first one we played.
And we played it, I swear we played it 3 or 4 times in like 2 weeks.
This game is incredible. This is Vietnam in a box. It can be quite long.
Yes.
That would be one of the only detractors from it, but there's different scenarios. You can set it up to be a bit shorter, but this gives you like all of Vietnam in this box, and boy, the theme is just oozing out of this. This is for me, one of the best implementations of the coin system because of how asymmetrical all the different factions are, what everyone's trying to do, and it feels like Vietnam. And that's what I love so much about this game. Is it's supposed to be Vietnam, and to me, it is. And you stick on a good playlist of 60s and 70s rock, and you play this game, and it's so rich. It's got Mark Herman and Volko's fingers in it.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, it's so good.
And it sets out it does what it sets out to do.
Right. The thing I love about it, and almost all Vietnam War games get this right, but the Americans have a lot of forces. They're very powerful. They can jump around the board with those lifts and assaults. But man, the VC are so wily.
You can't pin them down. Fires. You can't.
If I take care of them in this province, they just pop up in another province. And it's about figuring out how to do that on both sides, right?
Yeah.
And then throw in the Arvin, who are really just trying to ride the coattails of the Americans.
Trying to siphon off some of that good money.
That patronage. And then there's the NVA, who are trying desperately to sweep down and not get blown apart by
units through the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
I don't know.
Pouring out.
This game is amazing. I love it.
Yeah, and
we have never played this game that I didn't actually have an aneurysm halfway through.
Yeah,
it's so complex, though.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff to remember, and because the board is very big.
Yeah.
This is a big board, especially for a coin game. So there's a lot to do. And there's so many places you can get attacked. That's how the conflict was.
Yeah.
It's never like, okay, I've got my good line and I can just sweep up the map. You'll never be able to do that. And so it's constantly this swirling mess of fighting on Hill 325, and then we're going to abandon it and go into this other region.
Yep, and that's what happens.
But it feels that way, and this game executes that to a very high level.
Yeah. Awesome game.
That's my number 3.
It's higher on my list. We'll get to it, but fantastic game. My favorite coin game as well. So my number 3 is a game by Volko Remke, Labyrinth, the War on Terror. Right? I don't even know what I can say about this game. This is also a game that I think we've played.
We played this one a lot too. Yeah.
10, 12 times. We've played the expansion several times. I love this game because it is literally the most frustrating thing I've ever played in my life. And what I mean by that is, and I played the Americans mostly, coalition forces, because I remember one time I played the jihadists and it was over in like 3 rounds because I was thinking like an American, right? But this game is so frustrating because there's so many different ways that the jihadists can get you. And you've got to be nimble, and you've got to move around the map, but you've also got to get in there with your forces and take out those regimes and do the regime changes and change the structure of the country and the political stability. And it's a huge process, and it just takes forever. And the cards are just brutal, right?
Yes.
This is a game, one of the CDGs, that I play an event, and it's your event, it goes off.
Yep.
A lot of CDGs don't do that, but this one does it, and it is beautiful. It absolutely is one of the best parts of the game.
This is the game where I was like, how is this not on my list? Spoiler, it's not on my list. Because
it's so
I
good.
love this game.
Yep.
And what I like about this game is that you are the game, especially as the jihadist player. This game goes as the jihadist player goes.
Right.
You've got a good jihadist. By that I mean someone who knows how the game works.
You're a good jihadist, frankly.
You know, you have to do certain things. You have to be unpredictable. If you as we play this together a lot, I cannot do the same thing I did last game because he knows I'm going to try and do that kind of thing. You have to always be trying to think one step ahead, trying to make your cards work to do different things.
And as a jihadist, you have to look for those opportunities, right? Because there are key points where it's like, I can do that, and you got to get it done.
Yes.
You got to get those WMDs. The last game we played, you got the WMDs from Pakistan, I think.
Yep. I cleared out the Pakistan arsenal very early.
And I had to sweat about that the entire game, and eventually you got 2 WMDs in America, and I lost because I can't remember what card came up, but it...
Yeah, I was able to get them. I got them out of the Philippines and got them up to the west coast of the U.S.
But I needed one more three value card, or I needed some of those prestige to use a lower value card. It's such a great game. I love Labyrinth. I would love to play this one also a lot more.
This is grown-ups cat and mouse.
Yeah.
And the expansion adds very, very different.
Yeah.
A lot of good
Arab
history in there
Spring
as well.
Yeah.
Fascinating expansion.
I really enjoyed the Arab Spring element, and as that grows out of control, that can really help the Americans, and very, very good. So, great game. I love Labyrinth. My number 3.
My number 2 is Fields of Fire. This is a solo-only game. This is one of the most complex games that I own. This is an ungodly amount of rules in here. I've never played this game correctly, but it is one of my favorite games, one of my favorite solo games, one of my favorite tactical games, one of my favorite war games. It is so good the way the game feels. And that's what I love about this game. With a solo game, I want to make meaningful decisions. I want to tell a damn good story. And this is one of the few games that does both to an incredibly high level. Your decision making is so deep and so rich, and it's like purely tactical. Like you have to move guys into cover. You've got to make smoke signals, make fire teams, get weapons up. Everything that you can imagine tactical, you have to do all that. But they've got this like solitaire AI that's really intelligent, and the random kind of, you move in, so like an event happens, there's like an MG team over there that's hidden in the bush, they open fire on you. Crap, you gotta deal with that now. And then you might get, this team over here gets hit with an artillery strike, and now they're like pinned, and you have to go and rescue them. So there's also this just chaos that goes on, and to me it models what a full company experience doing a pretty significant offensive. This is a complex game, but if you're into solo wargaming, this is a 10 out of 10 for me.
Not for the faint of heart.
No.
You got to put some time into this.
A lot of time.
You've got to read and watch videos and just like you've done, dive in, right? You've got to dive in. You're going to make mistakes. You gotta learn it.
Yeah, you gotta play it wrong, eventually you might get it right. But either way, even if you play it wrong, it feels so good, the stories are so rich, but you are in control. And that's what a good solo game should do, and that's what this one does. So this is my number 2, Fields of Fire from GMT.
Yeah, we're getting down to the nitty gritty, aren't we? Oh. All right, my number 2 is Empire of the Sun, a game that we have played multiple times. And I still don't know that we get everything about the game.
I get it,
but it's just hard to do. It's hard to make happen.
Hard to execute well.
Recently I saw an interaction between a well-known podcaster and Mark Herman, the designer of the game, where the podcaster was complaining about his hand draw. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's a terrible hand. And then Mark said, well, here's what you do, this, and that, and do this, and work on this. And you're like, man, that guy's awesome. This game is so deep. It looks at the Pacific War, Pearl Harbor on, to the end of the war. Card-driven, which is awesome and fantastic. There's so many elements that are abstracted, like the Burma Road and the bridge over the River Kwai, and
the whole Chinese Revolution.
The Chinese Revolution. But it all works so well and creates a game that is fun to play.
Yes.
Historical, particularly because the cards are so historically oriented.
And what I like though is that on a macro scale it's historical, but on a micro scale, well, you can do whatever you want.
Oh yeah, it's kind of a sandbox. One of the things I struggle with, because I do the Americans mostly in this game, is Japanese intercepting all of my invasions. It is so hard to get away from that. And I think the couple of times that I've been able to avoid you intercepting, man, I've had good success. But man, that interception roll can be, and I can't remember all the modifiers off the top of my head, but man, that is a fantastic element that creates a lot of difficulty and a lot of planning that's required to make sure these things can go off well.
And this is the kind of game where you want to play the whole game. So,
yeah.
Because, you know, the Americans kind of get hammered as
right. For the first 2-3 years
out
of the war.
all these islands and spread out. And then there comes that tipping point where, yeah, I intercept all your invasions and we have a lot of naval battles, but I have, like, the Japanese have no replacement.
You just can't replace what you lose.
And the American juggernaut keeps going, and you get more and more fleet stacks coming in.
Yeah.
And so there's this swing as then they start to kind of take everything, but there's like a political onus.
Which is awesome.
To go and take all these islands.
Because that's the Japanese saving grace, right?
Yes.
All those reinforcements coming from the Americans, the only way they can really stave those off in 43 and 44 and into 45 is that political will track.
And the Americans have to take X amount of islands.
Or they lose favor.
Yeah, they start to get closer to, you know, the American people are like, screw this, the attrition's too much, let's sue for peace, that kind of stuff. So so much nuance in this game. This is one of the most complex games.
I would have to say this is one of my favorite CDGs as well. We need to do a list on CDGs, but I just think the CDG part of this game is so well done. It's
because
amazing.
There's so much choice in it. There's a lot of different numbers and events and bits and pieces on each card. So very open-ended game.
So that's my number 2, Empire of the Sun. Mark Ehrman, great game.
Okay, my number 1 favorite GMT game, I don't know if this is a surprise if you watch the channel a lot, is Unconditional Surrender. This is one of my favorite war games.
It's a great game.
It's a 2-mapper, and it's the full European theater. And you play start to finish if you want to do it. There's a lot of single map or single area scenarios that you can do. This is one of the most ingenious systems I've ever played in, because I love a big game, but I hate a lot of counters. And this is basically stacking limit of 1 is effectively what it is. So this one has like huge sweeping fronts depending on which part of the war you're in, but also it can get down to like a tiny single counter going against a tiny single counter like in North Africa. It's sometimes how it ends up, where it's pretty tense on like a single counter roll. You know, East Front's this huge red line against this huge gray line. The ingenious kind of chrome-based systems of like of the air forces, of the navies. They use this kind of sortie-based system, which they don't have like step losses or hits or anything, but it's this stack of kind of how many sorties they run is how effective they are in combat. There's 1 CRT in this game. Ingenious how it's done. There's events, there's politics.
The political part is very interesting, I think.
It's one of my favorite parts. You can influence countries before the outbreak of war, so you might have an entirely different landscape to the war. This is kind of like a what-if game. You can play it very historically and just do historical stuff if you want, but I think doing the politics beforehand, you know, can I bring Spain in as a fascist faction?
Can change things,
Can you join Italy and Germany? Can I get someone else into the war? And the Allies are doing the same thing. Well, maybe we can activate Spain, maybe we can get them to join the Allied forces. Maybe we can influence some of these other countries to do that. A lot of political stuff that goes on beforehand, and then you get to fight it out in what you've made. And I think that's something that's really cool in this one. You just get a lot of consequences to the actions that you do. Oh, this fight went badly over here. Well,
that's not going to cause this,
Oh, that one country, this tiny country that happened to join the Axis, which didn't historically, oh, that really clogs up what I can do on the East Front as the Russians, because I got this extra stumbling block here. A lot of cool stuff that goes on. Great solo game because there's no hidden information basically. There's like a tiny bit, but it's just very obvious what you should and shouldn't do. it's 2 maps, so it's quite a big game. But you can set it up and play this for hours and hours, weeks and weeks.
And we played a couple Thanksgivings ago, Case Blue.
Yes.
From C3I, I think number 28.
Oh,
27, 28.
And that's like just an introduction to this. It's
The
just,
East Front.
just the East Front, and just like a
That was a great
portion of
little
it.
game.
It was fine.
Russians got their butts kicked, but that's part of it.
But like that was like, I just want to play this now.
Right.
Which is what it's supposed to do, but like
It's supposed to enter you into the system.
get the real thing.
Yeah,
You want
right.
the real thing.
Right.
It's so good because it's Europe in a box. It's World War II, Europe in a box. It's a small box, everything fits in here. You get production, you gotta make stuff, tons of cool stuff in here. But it is surprisingly easy to learn and simple to play.
Yeah.
And that is the mark of an ingenious game. So my number one, Unconditional Surrender, Salvester, you're a genius.
And he's working on Armistice,
Yes,
right?
which is a World War I version. So that's exciting. That's a couple of years out, but boy am I excited for that too.
All right, so my number one, and I've already spoiled this, my number one is Fire in the Lake. My favorite coin game, although Liberty or Death is a close
That's
second.
very good too, yes.
I also love Pendragon. I love all of them, frankly. I don't know. There's too many good coin games to. That may be a good list we could do as a list of our favorite.
As soon as we make it, it'll be obsolete because there's another like 2 or 3 games.
But Fire in the Lake, Vietnam War, we've already talked a little bit about it. It was Alexander's number 3.
Yes.
Just a great game. Immerses you in Vietnam. I think you really get to see why the war was difficult, why it was difficult to prosecute for the United States, the slippery VC, the juggernaut of the NVA coming down, all the things you got to do. I feel like the Americans are always fighting the Armin too, and that's something that is just so hard. That patronage, it just kills you.
This is one of those coin games where if you could get 4 players,
this would be awesome.
One of your best gaming experiences ever. We play a lot 2-player, and it's great. Love it.
This one would be fantastic 4.
Yeah. So
this would be a dream to play like Volko and Mark.
It wouldn't be a dream
because we get crushed.
Killed. I guess
get crushed.
I guess you play one on each side.
Yeah, right. But I don't know what else I could say more about Fire in the Lake. I'm so glad that I got this game 3 years ago. Really set me on the course of really being an advocate and a fan of the coin series.
Yeah.
I own every one of them but Cuba Libre. Just such great games. This one is so well designed. Such a great game. Fantastic.
It is complex though.
It is very complex, very deep. I said it earlier, but your head hurts when you're done playing this.
I'm terrible at this game.
I think I am too.
I've never been close to winning it though.
I think I'm terrible too, but we have fun.
But that's
right?
the sign of a good game is that
just so great.
I have a blast playing it even though I'm terrible.
Yeah.
Just so much fun.
Yeah. Such a great game. So that's my number one, Fire in the Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Top 5 GMT games. How about that? If you go and yell at us in the comments.
Yeah,
How
right.
about that?
Tell us why we're stupid and wrong.
Tell us
I'm
what
okay
games
with that.
should have been on there.
Yeah.
Tell me what games I should go and look up and that we should try out.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys tuning in. We've been to players8.com.